6:00, we are ready.
Trying to get through the summer.
Okay. So, there you go. Wait, I'll keep an eye out for this. Okay, so to a different venue. Yeah. We can call the meeting to order whenever you're ready.
Chris and Joel, we're gonna go ahead and start, if you guys are ready. Okay. Said the former teacher.
I was just gonna say. Go ahead, Amy, whenever you're ready.
Okay, we'll call to order the Water Resources Advisory Board meeting, June 15th, 2026. And I guess I'll turn it over to Joanna for the technical rules.
Yes, unless you want to do meeting minutes first.
Oh, the approval of the April 20th. Is that right? Yeah. April 20th, 2026 meeting minutes. Call to approve the April minutes.
So move.
Great. Okay, the meeting minutes for April 20th have been approved.
Well.
And we vote. Okay.
Yep.
A vote to approve?
Sure.
Thank you. Still something to do with this.
Very great. Okay, want to go ahead?
Yes, please.
All right, before public comment, I will just read a little bit. Hi, my name is Joanna Bloom. I'm the technical host for this meeting. We'll go ahead and share a few slides of the virtual meeting rules that we follow that ensure a balance between transparency and digital security. For those of you online wanting to comment, please provide a full name to participate. If your full name is not currently displayed, please go ahead and text me at 303-817-1742, and I'm happy to change it for you. Although there's no chat feature for this meeting, the Q&A function can be used for any connectivity issues. Video control features are limited to city officials, employees, and invited speakers. If you are participating in a comment period, I'll unmute you when you're recognized to speak. And after I've unmuted you, please say your first and last name, and we'll begin a 3-minute timer once you begin your comments. And all of that applies for in the room too. Thank you for your participation. All right. We'll check the list. I believe it's open or public comment. Would you like to speak, Lynn, or are you? Yes. Okay, great. Let us get the timer set and then you can go.
Yeah. Are you ready? Is Mike okay and stuff?
You are doing great. We're using the room audio, so you can just start when you're ready.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm a little bit confused after the BBCP issue and water, our drought and the scarcity, and the long-term climate change issues of water availability. I guess I'm struggling with how Boulder can move forward with adding all of this development, which I see all the time. It's like, you wouldn't believe, if you went to a planning board meeting over the past year or two, you aren't going to believe what you see in Boulder in the next few months. Capelios, like Millennium, Dark Horse. It's just like endless growth, and it's like more bodies here to drink this water. And I guess what I'm struggling with is how we can not have a parameter, like a metric that each person, each body that we add to Boulder's population has, this much of a capacity for demand, water demand. And therefore we have to limit it by that rather than by having interceptors or big, I'm not a water expert. My name means water, but my brother was a water treatment guy. But something that concretely can control and manage population based on water, because it's saying the obvious to you. You all work in the field of water, like it's so elemental to human survival and existence. In Palestine, they don't have water at all. Sorry if I'm offending anyone that's pro-Israeli, but in this country for now, we appear to have this water, but like, how is it that we're able to build all this stuff? I don't get it. There doesn't seem to be much metric in the Boulder Valley Comp Plan that would cause that number to just be regulated. And you could balance it against other things in the comp plan that needed to be, survival related, but water is kind of elemental to that discussion and just can't wrap my mind around it, how we have this capacity, but we kind of don't. That, and if I'm confused, then maybe some others in the community are not understanding this also. Just a thought. I don't know, is my time? I don't know where the time
It
is.
is, you have 19 seconds.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of my concern is population and water. Yeah, that's what everybody's concern is. So I'm not telling you anything new. You're like, at the risk of stating the obvious, yet at the same time, I just feel anxiety about this. I guess because of my name.
Your time is up now, then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
I don't see anybody else online, so we're all set.
Okay. Moving on to the information item from Northern Water. Colorado River update.
Thank you. I can tee it up for you guys, and I might just, if it's okay, speak to the public comment. Certainly as staff, we're looking at growth and drought and climate change and, we coordinate with our colleagues in the planning department on population reductions. It's a huge area, and we have an integrated water supply plan coming up on our work plan in 2027. So good news on that. And then transitioning to the item tonight, we have a Colorado River update. It's something we do with the board every year or two. The Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District, we got trouble spitting that out, but I just did it. It gets its supplies from the Colorado River, and that's on average, it's a third of Boulder's water supply. There's a ton of public interest in the Colorado River topic. I don't think you can go a week without seeing a local news story or a national news story or some major printed article on it. And I know it's a subject of intense and ongoing negotiation between upper and lower basin states and the agencies involved in all of those negotiations. So tonight is just an information item. There's no action required of the board, formal position that needs to be taken by the board, but it is an opportunity for us to have some dialogue with two experts on the topic. Very fortunate to have two distinguished guests tonight on this topic, and we have Kyle Whitaker. Kyle's visited with RAB a number of times over the years and always appreciate the updates. And Kyle over the years has been leading the charge for Northern Water on following this topic of the Colorado River. Kyle has recently been promoted to the Director of Engineering, if I have that right, at Northern Water. So Kyle, we congratulate you on that. And then we also have Amy Ustic, who is a section chief of Interstate, Federal, and Water Information Section for the Colorado Water Conservation Board. That's a lot to say too.
I know.
So Kyle and Amy, with that, I'll turn it over to you. Appreciate you being here today.
Well, I appreciate Joe and Kim for inviting us, and I guess more inviting me, and then I asked Amy if she would join us, and just because Amy is on the front lines, Northern Water has a role in this, but right now it's 7 states trying to figure this out, and Amy's one of the key parts of the state of Colorado's team. So I asked if she would come and give you the latest on what's going on and what's not going on. So with that, I'll turn it over and let Amy give you that piece, then I'll after Amy's kind of talked to you about what's going on at the interstate level, I'm gonna bring it back a little closer to home and talk to you a little more about what Northern Water, who we are, what we do, and what we're doing to be part of the Colorado River family, if you will. So.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction. That's not working. Oh, is it? Oh, good. Okay. So yeah, my name is Amy and apparently I work for Northern Water now. Dang it. As it said, I am actually the chief of the Interstate Federal Water Information Section at CWCB. So I get to lead an interdisciplinary team, and we work in the policy space of interstate water issues. A lot of my time lately has been focused on Colorado River matters. I've been on the negotiating team for the state, so I've been on the roller coaster that has been Colorado River negotiations over the last few years. I just wanted to give you all an update on where we are, but I wanted to start with more of an explanation of how we got where we are, because I think that really helps folks understand, why we're taking the positions we are in the negotiations, why we are in the place we are, and all of that. So, I am not going to talk about all of this, so don't get too nervous about how late we're going to be here. But I just wanted to start with a big picture perspective of what we call the law of the Colorado River, the various agreements, interstate compacts, treaties, Supreme Court decrees that govern the use and allocation of the water on the Colorado River. So I'm just going to talk about a few of these, but it's really important, I think, to start with the Colorado River Compact of 1922. As has been mentioned, Colorado River's in the news a lot these days, and I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there. And one of the big things that you hear that is not correct is that we're renegotiating the compact. And I'm here to tell you that that is absolutely false. We are not renegotiating the compact. None of the basin states have an interest in doing that. It has worked this long, and we believe it will continue to work and protect our interests in the future. And, thinking about the Colorado River Compact and why it came to be in the early 1920s, essentially what was happening is California was developing very, very rapidly. You had a Supreme Court decree that said, I believe it was earlier in 1922, that essentially said, if there's a dispute between two states that share a river system and they both recognize the prior appropriation doctrine, that's going to apply across state lines. So Dolph Carpenter, sitting in Colorado, who actually litigated that case on behalf of the state of Colorado, said, I don't want that to happen to the river that originates in my state. And the way that you avoid that is by drafting an interstate compact. So where there's a compact in place, that Supreme Court jurisprudence is not going to apply. So another thing you might hear in the news is California has senior rights to us. And I'm here to tell you that also is not true. And the very point of the compact was to put the upper division states of Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming on equal footing with the lower division states of Arizona, California, and Nevada. So there's no priority between the basins. It gets a little complicated in the lower basin where there is priority among those three states. But the whole point of the Colorado River Compact was to create equity among the upper basin and lower basin. In fact, those are the very first words of the compact, the equitable division of the water of the Colorado River. So again, not going to go through everything that's in the compact. It's actually a pretty quick read. It's like 3.5 pages if you want to read it for yourself. But it provides for equal apportionments to the upper and lower basins of 7.5 million acre feet. Lower basin gets an additional 1 million acre feet in Article 3B. And then you have this pesky non-depletion obligation provision, and there are disputes about what exactly that means, but essentially what it says is the upper division states will not cause the flow of the river to be depleted below an aggregate of 75 million acre feet over a 10-year period at Perry, Arizona. What does that mean? That's a really great question. I would love to know, but we have a legal position among the upper division states about what we believe that means. And, really our perspective is that there's a causation element there. If something else is causing the flow of the river to be depleted beyond that amount, if we are, for example, using millions of acre feet less than our apportionment, probably wasn't us that caused that to happen. But nonetheless, we always have been well above that 75 million acre feet over a 10-year period. So that's the compact in a very brief nutshell. But what happened after the compact was signed? A whole lot of other things that impacts how the river is managed. Everything that came after the compact is subject to the compact, including the 07 guidelines, which govern the operations of Lake Powell and Lake Mead. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those and spend the rest of the time on those. But before I do, I just wanted to point out a couple other things here that shaped how things developed in the upper basin relative to the lower basin. So you may have noticed the compact didn't actually divide up the water among the states, only by upper and lower basin. So a number of other things happened later. And I'm not going to get into the details, but to make a very long story very short, the upper division states developed our own compact, the upper basin compact, that governs how we use water and how we apportion water. The lower basin states could not get it together. They ended up in the Supreme Court for decades. And as a result of all of that, the Secretary of Interior is the water master in the lower basin, meaning the federal government has a lot more authority in the lower basin than they do in the upper basin. So there's a lot more to be said about all of that, but I'm just going to leave it there because I think that's an important point when looking at, what the current management options could be going forward. So fast forward 2007, the basin states came together and developed what we call the 07 interim guidelines. And really what these are about is just the operation of Lake Powell and Lake Mead. How much water is Powell going to release on an annual basis was a big point of that. And they were meant to be interim in nature. So the reason that there's so much, well, there are many reasons that the Colorado River is in the news these days, but one of the reasons is that those expire in 2026. So they were designed to have us come back together, see how they worked, and figure out what to do for the next period with that. So that's what we've been spending a lot of our time working on. So we have kind of taken the approach that to look forward, you have to look back. You have to understand what happened under the 07 guidelines, how they worked to figure out what we want to do going forward. There's a lot happening here. And I'm going to just take a step back from all the information on this slide and explain a little bit of how the 07 guidelines work. So they were designed to essentially balance Lake Powell and Lake Mead. And if you look at the record of decision, what you see is a table that shows, when Lake Mead is at this level, Powell's going to release this amount. And the idea at the time was to not have one of them sitting up higher than the other, and to kind of balance out the contents of those two reservoirs. The way that has worked in practice is, when Lake Mead gets lower, more water is released out of Lake Powell. And when you think about what's driving the levels at Lake Mead, it's lower basin uses. Lower basin contractors in Arizona, California, and Nevada get their water out of Lake Mead. So when they're using a lot of water, that's going to push a higher release out of Lake Powell. And the reality of how much water we've been able to use by basin, it also is a tale of two very different basins. And that's what this infographic here shows, is that, the lower basin states have been able to rely on storage in Lake Mead and Lake Powell. They have used, on average over the 07 guidelines, 11.3 million acre feet. That's relative to their 8.5 million acre foot apportionment. That's what you see in the blue line here. And I will note that that includes main stem uses, tributary uses, and evaporation and transit loss, because that's what the compact contemplates. The upper division states, the yellow bar here, and we don't have a Lake Mead above us or a Lake Powell above us. So we have been just dependent on snowpack, and we strictly regulate water supplies. The state engineer, as you all are very aware, is out shutting people off. And in years like this, that means that we're using a lot less water than we do in wet years. So this is part of the story of how the 07 guidelines have operated. The lower basin states, despite the fact that we've been in a record drought, have still used a lot of water. And what that has done, because of how the 07 guidelines have operated and because of how they were designed to operate, is that's pulled really high releases out of Lake Powell. So you may have heard me or Commissioner Mitchell talk about this idea that the 07 guidelines are demand-driven rather than supply-driven. And what we mean by that is that, again, when Lake Mead is lower, more water is going to go out of Powell. So it's not really based on hydrologic realities. It's really based on downstream demands. And it's variable. It has been variable throughout the course of the EO7 guidelines, but you see some pretty stark examples here, like 2021, where 3.5 million acre feet flowed into Powell and 8.23 million acre feet was released from Powell. And unfortunately, that is kind of the story of the EO7 guidelines. You just have releases that far exceeded available supplies and far exceeded inflows. So we all know what's been happening lately at Lake Powell and Lake Mead. It has been in a steady decline really since the EO7 guidelines were adopted. In 2000, Powell was around 86% full, and I should have checked exactly how full it is today, but it's lower than 28%, I can tell you that. So that kind of leads us to what we've been working on and what we've been trying to do throughout the course of the negotiation for what we call the post-2026 operations of Powell and Mead. Our approach has been, we need to move to some kind of supply-driven framework where Lake Powell is not consistently releasing more than what's flowing into it, because that just doesn't work. So that's what the upper division states have been pursuing. But it's important to remember that this is all, it's NEPA. So we have submitted an alternative. The lower basin states have submitted an alternative and input, but ultimately reclamation is driving the ship. And they're the ones who are going to have to determine the preferred alternative. So this is just a timeline of the process that they have gone through. We submitted our alternative in 2024. Reclamation has put out an alternatives report, draft EIS. And looking forward, they're getting ready to put out a final EIS and a record of decision in the coming months. So we are, continuing to provide input. We, like I said, provided our formal alternative, but throughout the negotiations, we've been consistent, and that one way or another, we have to have supply-driven operations. We are willing to kind of share the bounty, in wet years and have higher releases out of Lake Powell, but when Lake Powell is not healthy, when, the natural flow is low, Powell has to release less water. There's really no other way to move forward. But a few other things that I think are really key components of what we put on the table. First is just, we talk about hydrologic shortage, but really what it is, we strictly regulate water uses across the upper basin. Each upper basin state has a state engineer that is out cutting people off when there's not enough water. And, if everyone in the basin had been doing that this whole time, we wouldn't be in the mess that we are now. So that is a big thing that we think that we can do and continue to do, is simply live within the means of the river. But we also want to contribute in ways that we can. This contribution program, we've used a lot of different words for this. Demand management is probably the phrase that Linda recalls, but conservation. We have put forward the concept of a conservation program in the upper basin so that when water is available to our water users, they can get paid on a voluntary basis to not use it and contribute to some kind of a bank in Lake Powell. Or the upstream initial units, and also, releases from the upstream initial units. We are seeing a 1 million acre foot release from Flaming Gorge this year to support Lake Powell, and we would anticipate that some kind of agreement about how the upstream initial units are used would be part of the future agreement as well. So those are the things that we're working on and have been pursuing and will continue to. But again, we're in NEPA land right now and right in the thick of it. We expect Reclamation to put out a final environmental impact statement at the end of this month, and then record of decision in July, late July. And we've recently gotten a little bit of information about what we think Reclamation might be looking at. So this has been a unique NEPA process in many ways, I will say. And in one way it has been unique is that Reclamation has started talking recently about a preliminary preferred alternative. I don't really know what that means. I've never heard that phrase before in the NEPA world, but I think it's kind of just putting testing something out, seeing how people react to it, seeing how the basin states react to it. But this is kind of what it is. It's a 10-year framework, but it would be renegotiated every 2 years. So there are some kind of principles that they are essentially stating that they will follow this hydrology responsive operations, which sounds great. Sounds like things that we've put forward. They will protect critical elevations of Powell and Mead. Preserve benefits of any extraordinary or emergency actions. I think we still have some questions about what exactly they're talking about, but what comes to mind for me there is releases from the upstream initial units. How do you make sure that those are benefits of that, are occurring? So, they have these principles that are a little bit kind of open-ended perhaps, but they also have these sideboards that really speak more to operationally screwed up by formatting there. How this would work. So they're providing essentially a range. And I think what they would really like, I know what they would really like is for the basin states to come to agreement every 2 years within these sideboards, essentially. So you have lower basin shortages upstream like the power operations between 5 and 12. And this, storage pool concept in both Lake Powell and Lake Mead, where we could store conserved water in Lake Powell, the lower basin can bank water in Lake Mead. And then the upstream initial units would continue to be part of the discussion. So again, we don't have a lot of information yet about how they're viewing the very first 2 years of these operations. I think that's what they're working on right now, is determining what the first 2 years under this framework might look like. And I think we'll get more information about that pretty soon. That's the end. So we are continuing to work with Reclamation and the other basin states to provide kind of input on all of this. The lower basin has also provided input. Where things stand right now is that there is one particular state in the lower basin that is threatening litigation, that's Arizona. And, they have a very specific perspective of what they believe they are entitled to out of Lake Powell. And the reality is that under any scenario we talked about, Powell is not going to be able to release that amount of water because it's been so depleted through the course of the 07 guidelines. So, the things that we're waiting on right now are what is Reclamation going to do? What are they going to propose for the first 2 years? And what is Arizona going to do, frankly? Again, there's simply not enough water in the system or in Lake Powell to support what they believe that they're entitled to. So one way or another, there's, I think, a reckoning coming, particularly for Arizona, who does have junior priority in the lower basin. So we'll be facing the majority of whatever reductions are applied down there, unless they reach some other agreement. Yeah, that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. But I'm happy to take any questions that you all might have.
Which is it? Powell or Mead that's closer to Deadpool? I'm sure it's the right term, but
Powell is Powell is closer to Denver.
Powell's like closer.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more.
Okay.
And there are actions being taken now, including a 1 million acre foot release from Slaving Gorge. And then they reduced the release from Lake Powell. It was supposed to be 7.48 this year. They reduced it down to 6. And we're still seeing that there's a significant risk that Powell will be below Deadpool in the coming year, even with those actions.
Is there a quantification of that risk for this year?
It all depends on hydrology, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the half 50-50.
About 50%, wow.
There's a 24-month study just came out today, and I haven't actually looked on it yet because I just didn't want to be depressed coming here. So, but I think that it's showing a pretty significant likelihood that it will dip below.
Amy, one of the other things, well, a number of things, I don't really like the graphic about the blue and the orange lines. There are some groups that disagree with how that's being portrayed, but one thing you said was that states have never been close to cutting below 75 million, and we've certainly read in some of the blogs and in some of the analyses recently that we're getting close. Do you agree with those analyses or not? Because that potentially triggers other kinds of litigation as well.
Yeah, so I think what we're getting close to and is reasonably foreseeable is 82.5 million acre feet at Leaf Berry. And that the reason that is significant is, and you've brought up, I think, two legal issues that there are a difference of opinion on between the upper and lower basins. The lower basin believes that they assert that not only, does the upper basin owe 75 million acre feet, but also half of the Mexican treaty obligation. So that's how you get to 82.5 million acre feet. We're gonna be there in the next few weeks.
Yes.
So that, and here's the thing, is there's no amount of water in the upper basin. Look forward for the next few years. There's no way that 82.5 can be maintained, even if we were to, take very drastic measures in the upper basin. So that is foreseeable. I think the 75/10 is really dependent on what happens operationally for the next few years. So we don't see that, in the immediate future right now, but I think it'll depend on how low the release is out of.
And reclamation in this regard takes the lower basin position, that the upper, that's 82.5 has been what we've had to do for decades.
Well, I would say not so much. I would say that the 07 guidelines, maybe backing up to the reclamation's position on this, they have at least stated publicly in their materials, they are not weighing in on compact interpretation. But that is, not, they are operating two dams and they're going to have to make decisions that will cause, the releases to be lower than the lower basin's view of the compact.
Right.
But the reality is the very reason we're in this position is because Lake Powell has been releasing, way more than what is in it for years now. So, or, than what's hydrologically available.
So can you say more about this cause issue? Is it 3D? Yeah, is that the section?
Yeah, so the causation, you're asking about the
causation,
Yeah.
because if, we've got mega drought. Still considered to be 20-year plus mega drought. But obviously in climate change, which a lot of the scientific literature suggests that temperature alone has led to a reduction in in-stream flows. So I'm just, what's the northern basin's position on that? Northern basin, the upper basin, I'm sorry, is the upper basin, causing this, or is it attributed to other causes like climate change? Well,
I think it's a complicated question. So
yes, it is.
but what I would say is there are a number of things that one should look to when determining the causation of that. One thing would be how was the reservoir operated over the last 20 years and how responsive has that been to hydrologic conditions? One, I think, is upper basin uses. We are using 3.5 to 4.5 million acre feet in the upper basin. That is millions of acre feet lower than our
Got up in recent years, or
it has been variable. It totally depends on the year type and how dry it is, and again, this goes to the state engineer out just actively cutting people off when we don't have the supply. So, and in many years like this one, water rates are cut back, to dates that predate the compact by decades, to the 1880s, the 1860s. And if you read further in the compact, you see that pre-compact rights are not, they're protected. So if we ended up in Supreme Court litigation, we would be able to argue, and I think would win on this, and there's not really dispute that pre-compact water rates are not to be curtailed to supply, downstream states. I would also argue that one would want to look at lower basin uses, and Melinda, appropriately noted that there is controversy about the facts, which is, the numbers that we are showing in this are from the Bureau of Reclamation. They are simply, lower basin main stem evaporation transit loss and tributary use. And what the lower basin would say if they were in this room is don't look at tributary use. You shouldn't even consider tributary use because of the Supreme Court decree in Arizona v. California. It said that the water, it doesn't count. And what I would say is they should read the decree, which says it is subject to and does not interpret the 1922 compact and that apportionments in the 1922 compact do include tributaries and evaporation and transit losses. So two sides of the dispute.
There, it's not a, if it has to go to the Supreme Court, it's not a slam dunk for
Yeah.
either side. Both sides believe strongly they're gonna win.
So I was just gonna say, I think the facts about how much water is being used, those are not disputed. This is information from reclamation that I think the lower basin wouldn't disagree with. They would just say, you shouldn't even be talking about that, which is an interesting position.
Amy, I'm very curious, in representing Colorado in the negotiations, how does the state land on its position, and what kind of like engagement or information collecting has gone into this conversation over the last few years? Because it sounds like you have a very strong position, and we certainly have held to it. So I'm curious, like, how did we come to this position, and who are the parties that are really in lockstep with you, and what are some of the positions that push back on us from a Colorado state perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when, Commissioner Becky Mitchell came into her role as commissioner, one of the first things she did was travel all over the state and talk to water users, go to all the basin roundtables, anyone that would have her rally and say, what do you think we should be doing here? It's your water. What positions do you think we should be taking? What did we get wrong with the 07 guidelines? How should we adjust course going forward? So she actually developed a set of negotiating priorities or principles, and I should have had a slide of those. I usually do, but it's very wordy. But those have kind of served as the North Star, for Colorado, at least throughout the negotiations, and have helped kind of form the positions we've taken. And those were very heavily influenced and, directly written in some cases or by water users. So that's kind of how we started. But the other thing that we've taken very seriously is unity among the upper division states. We know that we are going to fare better in these negotiations if we're all standing together. So all 4 upper division states have stood together on all of these points and on all these kind of negotiating positions and priorities. And the legal positions I just talked about, we all share that as well. So I think, for starting within the state and just making sure that we are really out talking to people and getting input and representing the views of the water users has been our first priority, and then making sure that we're coordinated with the other upper divisions.
Thanks.
Can I ask Amy, there seems to be a lot of talk in the news about this upper versus lower basin dynamic, and I think you captured that perfectly in describing like how we got to this problem. And while I think there's historical significance in that, I worry a lot that it takes away from the conversation about a solution that's needed. Because ultimately, I think we're facing the same problems in the upper basin that the lower basin is facing. That's just there's not enough water to meet demand. So can you tell me a bit more? I think you touched on this, but can you talk a little bit more about some of the solutions that Colorado is proposing? Like, how can we participate and conserve water? And how can we work with our partners in the lower basin to try to come to a basin-wide solution and get past this kind of pitting against each other dynamic?
No, absolutely. I think that's critical. And, I also think that the whole conversation about the upper versus lower basin obscures a number of different things that are going on. And one of those is, that I didn't really get into, is what's happening between Arizona and California, and determining, at the end of the day, I think everyone knows that the lower basin is going to have to take significant reductions. And there are legal complications between Arizona and California because of the Supreme Court decree I was just referencing. And so they've really struggled to reach an agreement on who's going to take the cuts. So I want to preface the other things I'm going to say with that I don't think that this has been truly a fight between the upper and lower basins. I think a lot of it has been between California and Arizona behind the scenes. But to your point, I think we've been really focused on what can we do to rebuild storage? What can we do to be part of the solution? And some of it, I think the biggest thing is just sustainable operations at Lake Powell. How do we figure out how to rebuild storage, to not consistently release more water than is flowing in? And we put forward a number of proposals on how to do that. But the other part is we know that we, need to do what we can in the upper basin as well. So we have put on the table and stand ready to set up I call it a contribution program. And that's really just because we want it to be broader than just conservation. So what are the mechanisms that we have to provide water to Lake Powell to help rebuild storage? So and that could include conservation. You might be familiar with the System Conservation Pilot Program, something like that, but maybe broader. So that's the kind of thing I think we would, like to do. And also the releases from the upstream initial units, knowing that, we have limited smaller storage buckets up here, but we know that they have to be part of the solution as well.
So in terms of the demand management type programs like the System Conservation Pilot Program, I believe there are other states in the Upper Basin that have implemented their own like statewide programs for systems like that, or for programs like that. Is Colorado floating any idea of like a demand management program where we can pay water users to conserve water?
We've been talking about this for years. I'm so glad you asked that question. What I will say is that some of the things you've seen come out of other states, Wyoming in particular, some of the legislation that they have passed recently actually just gets them caught up with us. We already have provisions in state law, for example, to protect historic consumptive use numbers from abandonment, things like that. So some of what we're seeing other states do, we already have the ability to do. But Utah, for example, have stood up kind of this pilot program. If you were to have a candid conversation with folks in Utah, I think you would learn that they're learning a lot about how complicated it is to actually stand up a program like that. But we've done a whole lot of work in Colorado looking into how that could work. And I think that, we have been hopeful this whole time that would be part of a basin state package, that would fit into an agreement. So I think now we're kind of in the stage of, okay, without a 7-state consensus, where does that type of program fit? How does that work? How do we coordinate among the upper basin states and reclamation to make that work? So that's kind of what we're thinking about right now.
Are we waiting for federal incentives to make that happen? Is that what goes between the lines?
Well, the federal government will need to be engaged in a few different ways. And one is, how is that water treated when it hits Lake Powell? How is the water accounted for? But the other is, we've heard loud and clear from a lot of water users in Colorado that this should be a federally funded program if we're going to do it. So I think that's another component, is what are the federal funds available? And I think, there at many levels has been this kind of approach of, let's see what's in a basin state consensus package and what kind of funding package we might need from Congress. And without that, I think, we're all kind of trying to figure out how to bring those pieces into place without that broader agreement.
Amy, so the 2017 agreement provided for 500,000 acre-feet of demand management storage from conservation. That goes away with the end of the 07 guidelines. The states never did that up here. We had a system conservation pilot, we had some other things, but it was trivial, and the states never really took advantage or decided to do that. There was a lot of pushback, but I'm curious whether that's something that could be resurrected, I guess, since you said you're thinking about it again. But the other, and I know this is trying to do this in this short amount of time is hard, but so I'm curious whether the upper basin states at this point are serious about contributing in terms of demand management, having chosen not to for the last 10 years when that was explicitly made a part of the agreement. But I'm also curious, and this is a jump, about where the tribes are, because what's been in the papers with regard to the 2-year constant negotiation for the next 10 years. I haven't seen anything in the press about what reclamation is doing with regard to the tribes issues in this agreement, because that's also certainly something that Becky put front and center from when she started? So those are two questions.
Yeah, so starting with the first one, I think you were referring to the 2019 drought conditions.
Sorry,
Plan.
19.
No, it's the demand management storage agreement. And that gave us the ability and authority to save up to 500,000 acre feet in Lake Powell. And what I will say about that is if you read the demand management storage agreement, it's a unique creature. And the things that the upper division states would have to agree to, and the way we would have to go forward with setting up a program like that, it's complicated to say the least, and it requires a lot of agreements among the upper division states. So, you know, I would not characterize our not setting that up necessarily as failure, but we learned a lot of lessons about what could work and what couldn't work, partly through system conservation pilot program. And I would say that we did our very best with SEPP with limited tools, limited time available. And, you know, we're able to, I think in our highest year, you know, something like 64,000 acre feet across the upper basin. So I think we've always taken those discussions seriously, and we looked into a lot of different issues associated with that type of program in Colorado. And yeah, we have put the contribution program on the table since day one of these negotiations, and I think we all stand ready to do that and do take it seriously. And it might not look exactly like the demand management storage agreement. I'm not going to call it demand management. But you know, yeah, I think that we're ready to do that.
And the 12 billion dollars that came out of the bills in 21 and 22, that money, you made it sound like that money is not available anymore. That money has been used and can't be. You're going to need more money from Congress to do this.
80% of that went to the lower basin for temporary agreements that didn't actually solve the problem, unfortunately. So I don't know. It's an interesting trying to understand the landscape of federal funding right now. I can't say that I do.
We haven't seen any B2E.
So, but I think that, you know, there would be an interest and an appetite for finding money to make some kind of upper basin contribution program work. That's what I would hope, and that's what we would, you know, when we're ready to do that, that's what we would pursue. But I can't say that I know where exactly the money will be coming from.
And what about the tribes?
Yeah, so you know, Reclamation has been consulting with the tribes on a separate but parallel track. I can't really speak to how they've incorporated all of that into what they're looking at. What I can say, and you know, related directly to the contribution program, is that we would be very interested in looking at how the tribes can participate in something like that. You know, in Colorado, how can the tribes, you know, get something for their unused apportionment that they have been unable to develop largely because of the government? How can we help them develop that? How can we, you know, how can that water be part of that contribution program? It's something that we're really interested in. I think the tribes are interested in as well. But you know, the issues that the tribes have they're very varied, even just across the upper basin. So we work very closely with the Southern Ute, Mountain Ute tribes in Colorado, but each state has kind of unique relationships and challenges with the tribes within their states. But we're very, very coordinated, the two tribal nations in Colorado.
You know the tribe, you know the tribe.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I have a question about the allocation for Northern Colorado water conservation for this year. Is that more appropriate for you, Con? Is this a time to do it, or or should I ask this now, or?
If you'll give me 5 minutes, I'll probably touch on it.
Oh, that's fine. We'll
Right.
get to that. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
And I do want to note a time check. This is a great conversation,
Sorry.
and we're going a little past
Yeah.
the time we had allotted on the agenda. I think that's okay. We can calibrate the tour probably, but
Just roll line.
But thank you so much for your explanation there. It's very helpful.
Reach out anytime. Just give me a call or shoot me an email.
Well, thank you, Amy, and I'll try to follow that up and not confuse you all and hopefully add to it. Thankfully, Amy came tonight to give you that. Real quick, I think this will answer your question. I put this on here. I anticipated because a lot of people are interested within our district about quota, the allocation, how our project works, how it was designed, and what are the parallels between this and the lower basin use. And so I'll just start by very simple here. When the CBT project was put together in the 1930s, after about a decade of negotiations with our counterparts in Western Colorado, came to an agreement, memorialized what they were going to get out of it, what Front Range was going to get out of it. Project was designed for 310,000 acre feet. That was designed, that's the need. And to this day, in a year like this, we probably need closer to 400,000 acre feet to supplement the supplies from what's not being provided by Mother Nature here on the Front Range. The project was put together 310,000 acre feet. That was the deal. Our average diversions, as you can see here, are just over 200,000. If we were in the lower basin, they would say, without a doubt, we are conserving 100,000 acre feet a year. They would claim it, they would store it in Lake Mead, and that's how they look at it. It is a contractual obligation. That's what the system was designed for, and that's what they're going to use. And if they don't use it, they get credit. And so our board, the Northern Water Board, over the years came up with what's called the quota system. It's an allocation system. It's meant to supplement the supplies or lack thereof here in the tributaries and in the South Platte Basin to originally not bankrupt farmers. It was to get us through Dust Bowl type years, get us through a year just like this, and to fill in the divot that Mother Nature created. And our board over the years has averaged just over a 70% quota. Wetter years, there's just not the need, and our quota has been as low as 50%. In dry years such as this, historically, it's always been 100%. And there are water users, there's nothing that keeps us from assigning, keeps our board from assigning 110%, 120%. To Amy's graphic on the lower basin, they're running about 120% of their allocation, if you want to look at it that way. There's nothing that would prevent the CVT system from doing the same. And our board this year, because of conditions, storage reserves are in good shape in our reservoirs. They decided instead of doing 100 to issue an 80 quota. The ag community is disappointed in that. There is a lot of, about 2/3 of the acres under the big ditch systems have not even been planted this year because there's just not enough water to irrigate crops. So they made a decision to not plant or go into preventative planting. That difference between every 10% quota is 31,000 feet. So again, going to a lower basin parallel, if we went from what absolutely would have been 100% quota in the past to an 80%, that's 62,000 acre feet of water served, if you will. So that's kind of where we're at. This is just, again, a long-term look at quota. You can kind of see there. The yellow bars are when the system was down. Our storage reserves were not adequate, and the quota was artificially lower because there just wasn't wet water available in storage reserves. There's a number of years where, quota could be a lot higher. We could push the system harder. If we had pushed it in hindsight, we could have maintained with perfect hindsight about a 90% quota every year and never ran out of water. And that's with perfect looking back. That's kind of what the system would do. Real quick, because there's a lot in the news right now about Green Mountain Reservoir. It was part of the CVT project. It is part of the CVT project. It was the primary mitigation component, and 100,000 acre feet was built, provided free of charge for West Locals. So it is part of the CVT project. Power is generated on this, and 100,000 acre feet was made available. The original deal, again, to connect a few dots for you all, the original deal was the Shoshone Power Plant that's in the Glenwood Canyon. It's been in the news a lot. The original deal was a CBT project through Green Mountain Reservoir would maintain 1,250 CFS, the senior water right shown throughout the irrigation season. That's what it was built for. It would keep them satisfied, therefore keep the call off, and all West Slope development could proceed without interference from being called out under our water rights priority system. 1984, the West Slope, primarily driven by the ski industry and a need for snowmaking water that could not come out of Green Mountain Reservoir because of the agreement with the West Slope. It was broke up into what you see here today, into what's called a historic users pool, but more or less to generate the contract pool primarily for the skiers. They hold the vast majority of the contracts in the Green Mountain Reservoir. It changed but basically it goes, it's used to, Green Mountain Reservoir is critical to the West Slope. 100,000 again, they don't pay a penny for this, never have. I mean, it's been free. All the maintenance, operation and maintenance is paid for by you all constituents of Northern Water. And so it's provided to the West Slope for free, as well as the silt pool there is another reclamation project in Garfield County in the Rifle Silt area, towns of Rifle and Silt, another supplemental irrigation project. But Green Mountain, all the fruit crops in the Grand Valley, they would not exist without Green Mountain, because historically, by July, August, they'd run out of water. Green Mountain Reservoir provides that supplemental supply for them. Green Mountain is in rough shape this year, just because of hydrology and lack of snowpack, and so it's not going to fill this year, which is pretty rare. But it has happened before in a couple of other years, but it's pretty rough. But again, so real quick, just touch on this. Some of you might be aware of Wolford Mountain Reservoir, also done by Northern Water Subdistrict. Paid for half of it. The River District had got partnered with Denver Water, so they basically split Wolford Mountain Reservoir. The River District owns and operates it. Northern Water, through the sub-district, through the Windy Gap project, and Denver Water paid for it. And this little clip you see here is out of their brochure that and it provides, again, recreation, 20,000 acre feet for the West Slope that was paid for by Windy Gap. Denver Water's part, Middle Park Water Conservancy District, another West Slope Water Conservancy District. They have 3,000 that the municipal sub-district of Northern Water paid for. Their permitting, 6,000 acre foot was made available through endangered fish program, and et cetera. So again, both these reservoirs paid for by the constituents of Northern Water and the sub-district, but for West Slope only use. Just mention on the recovery program, very important, it keeps all of us in Colorado. There's 2,000 water projects, both East Slope, West Slope, that benefit from ESA compliance through this recovery program for these 4 fish that are in the Upper Colorado system. Northern Water, along with Denver and other Front Range entities, came together to provide a little over 5,400 acre feet out of Granby Reservoir CBT facility on the West Slope to help prop up flows, late season recovery for the fish. I'll just let you all look at this. This is from 2018. This is just going into Glenwood Canyon. This is what's available at the Shoshone Power Plant. And I'll just let you look. This is the black line is natural flow. This is not actual flow of the river. This is if you take away all the depletions. This is what the Colorado looked like. Colorado River looked like. I mean, and in most years, very, very similar. Wetter years, definitely higher. But you can kind of see as you get into August, September, flows are in the 600-700 range commonly. But with Green Mountain Reservoir and Wolford Reservoir and the fish water coming out of those reservoirs, you see what the blue line is actual flow of the Colorado. And it's a lot of water. You can see that delta there is 86,000 acre feet that was released out of there, going downstream. The rafting industry, fishing industry, these reservoirs, again, provided by the East Slope entities, are critical to the economy as well as the flows in the Colorado River. I'll leave you with one other thing because I think it's so important. I think it's something we're very proud of, and it goes to to contributions in a program. Northern Water has been working with Grand County for the past few years. And in short, you see Willow Creek Reservoir. Willow Creek Reservoir is one of the collection facilities of the CBT project. We pump water from Willow Creek Reservoir into Granby Reservoir, where it can be pumped to the tunnel for use on the east slope. Below Willow Creek Dam, there's a 45 CFS ditch, Bunty Highline ditch you see here, that diverts, and it's senior to the CBT project, historically called 45 CFS through Willow Creek Reservoir, was not available for the CBT project to divert. This ditch and these lands you see here that are shaded, irrigated lands in the green and the kind of pinkish color, they were taken out of production, the ones in the pink color, by failed development. There was a big golf course. This is just outside the town of Granby. Big, massive golf course, early 2000s, failed. They've done so much work, the ditch could not irrigate those lands anymore. This water right went unused from the early 2000s to current. We had been approached, many people have been approached about buying it. We ended up, Northern Water bought this a couple of years ago. Bought the water right, not to use it, but to work with Grand County to make water available. And so the water we have been, and we continue to store and divert because we no longer have to bypass it because the ditch cannot irrigate with it. We're the next water right in line. We get the water we have, and so we've worked with them, and to kind of give you an idea, it's about 5,000 acre feet a year that's been stored, brought to the east slope. We've entered into an arrangement with Grand County to make this available to them for their use. So we divert it, we store it in CBT reservoirs, and then Grand County has the ability to release it for their use. And so this year it's going to be used a little bit for in-stream purposes, but most of it's going to be delivered to the Grand Valley to finish crops in the Grand Valley. And this is an agreement we've been working on and just got all through Bureau of Reclamation authorizations here a few weeks ago. And it's been a very good project, and it couldn't have happened at a more timely time just because of the year we're seeing. Going forward, we're hoping that this will be part of a Colorado contribution program. I mean, this is thousands of acre feet. This is equivalent, especially in this area, to about 4,000 acres of dry up. If you dry up 4,000 acres of ag land, you put this with the fish water and everything else, it's significant. So we'll see what that means for a contribution program. And sorry to go through that so quickly, but be glad to fill in blanks or answer questions if you have.
I'm curious for that, what you were just describing with the 5,000 acre feet that's produced. Did Northern Water quantify or really account for your costs and the value of that production? Is there any kind of like monetization of the work so that at the end of the day, you're talking cost benefits, or you're able to point to this saying, farmers, we have effectively given you, $1 million worth of crop production a year?
We haven't. Our hope when we did this is very few times in the water world where you feel like something's a win. This was a windfall for the CBT system over the last 20 years. And the West Slope was not happy about it, but without the CBT reservoirs and the CBT infrastructure, it made no sense for anyone else to do this. Many people looked at buying it, trying to go to water court, do things. I won't go into the details, but it was diminishing returns. And so no one else would touch it. And we decided that it was the right thing for us to do it and use our facilities and make it available to Grand County. We do have a provision in here. If our reservoirs are in bad shape, we can keep half of this water. And work with Grand County for that. So it does give us a bump in really bad times. But again, we're not there this year. And so we've agreed to give it all to Grant County for their use. They can use it for in-stream, environmental recreation, or in a year like this for consumptive use downstream. But it's gonna still accomplish all those benefits because it'll be released from Grandview Reservoir and delivered all the way down to Grand Junction. So it'll make multiple uses and benefit the stream and the environment and then be diverted at that point. Did that answer your question or?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Could you elaborate a little more? You said we could have actually pulled more out of CBT this year. We decided to use 80% rather than putting 100. What was the thinking of that and what,
Ultimately, it's our board's decision. They take input from constituents. I think a lot of the municipal water providers and municipal allottees of the CBT project they kind of plan around a pretty steady Eddie yield, if you will. And I don't know, you can comment on what Boulder uses, but a lot of them use about a 70% quota, and that gives them a full supply. Ag obviously doesn't have that same luxury. And so with the transition of CBT units out of ag and into municipal, I think our board decided this year it was prudent to go with 80% instead of 100. They've been requested every month. They get our board gets lots of requests to up it again, and they still could. We had a discussion last week at our board meeting, and I don't think there's a whole lot of energy around changing it or upping it again, but we'll see what the rest of the summer holds.
it's just following what Amy's president, but we don't benefit monetarily at all by using less, right? There's no, it's just we're big guys, right? We don't use much.
Yeah.
It diffuses criticism.
Although even though we're using more, well, the less slope, I mean, look at the drought map, the worst place in Colorado is the upper basin of Colorado. Yeah. Severe drought. Right. So, but we're taking out more this year.
Well, it's not taking it out as much. I mean, the water we're living on this year was stored last year and the year before, the year before. I mean, the inflows this year are going to be nowhere near what we deliver. It's living off, and that's why you build storage, just to get you through the bad years. And the CBT project has about 800,000 acre feet of storage in total. And so if you're delivering 200,000-ish a year, you're the planning horizon for the CBT project is 4, 5, 6 years out, trying to make sure you don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you communicate with the city of Boulder and other allottees in the Northern Water System during years like this, and how information from the state with the interstate negotiations kind of trickles down to us on the local level? Like, how are we thinking about this based on what you're...
It's a great question. We provide water to Boulder and 33 other municipal water providers. We provide water to about 110 ditch companies. And so, a lot of people, and we have, newsletters, emails that go out. We do annual symposiums. We do, and then a lot of these sites, I'm fortunate enough to serve with Kim on some South Platte endangered species program and represent water users for Colorado on the South Platte, but also am on the Upper Colorado River Commission Engineering Committee. So I have the honor to get a lot of information, to be exposed to a lot of things, and then trying to bring it back to the local level. And that's why I appreciate so much you all inviting me tonight. This is the best way we can convey information. Daily, these City of Boulder staff communicate with our water scheduling, our operations staff for the delivery of water. This time of year, it's we're busy delivering water every day, and so it's trying to keep the policy and the high level stuff. It's mostly through groups like this.
If I can add to that, I would just say Northern Water has been a great partner over the years, and they have established standing meetings on various subjects that Kim and her team attend regularly. I used to when I was the water resources manager. They don't let me out anymore. And then there's the informal flow of information, just day-to-day operations, and sophisticated staff that they have at Northern and our staff. There's just a really good flow of information and a great partnership there.
I might just add, I think Northern staff is really accessible, so whenever we have questions, we just reach out. So it's, yeah, it's been a great partnership for sure.
Thanks for the info.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
A lot, kind of rapid fire.
Thank you both for coming.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
the way
for
that built the framework and then brought us down to some specific examples. It's like you planned it.
Feel bad for the amount of information I threw out there.
Can you share the slides that you went through?
Yeah.
That would be perfect, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify one thing I said.
Yeah.
To not mislead you. Yeah, about 50% chance that Lake Powell drops below power pool. Not, yeah. So there's still about 2 million acre feet between power and dead. But there's a lot of questions in that range of how much can really come out because you've lost so much head, don't have the turbines to go through, et cetera. So
And
Okay,
losing,
thanks.
losing power pool has huge implications, for both the reservoirs.
and this would be projections going to the low point next spring. As Lake Powell kind of hits its low point at the right before runoff. Our hopes are, it's a couple of feet, give or take, between the drop and below power pool. And the hope would be through Flaming Gorge, that they even talked about in the other initial unit. Reducing releases, retiming releases out of Lake Powell, that we would get through that without losing power generation.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your night. Moving on to matters from the board.
Just
I would say you guys are welcome to stay.
But you don't have to.
I think we've probably got about 20 more minutes of.
Hopefully shorter than that. But yeah, I've been in the spot you guys are in, and you don't feel funny if you want to just.
Well, I can walk you out if you wanna, if you wanna.
And
Take some dinner.
take some,
Yeah.
take a.
Take lots of-
Wait,
Great.
It's good stuff.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
So, well, so, okay, last time we met, we were talking drought.
Yeah.
We got two significant precipitation events last month, 14, where does that leave us?
Yeah, and there, got a little bit more than we talked about when we discussed the agenda. Quick, water supply update from Kim under matters from staff.
Okay,
Great.
yeah, that'd be good. Sure, that'd be great.
And if you'd like, I can go to that now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Uh,
Unless she needs to watch enough.
well, I've got something first. So we have, we have three quick things, I think, under matters from staff. I mentioned one to Amy when we talked about the agenda last week. The first one is that the city clerk's office recently met with the board representatives from each department who have a board. And let us know that we'll be moving to a different software package for managing agendas and meeting materials that you get. I think it'll have a substantive change for board members and their experience.
Lucky you.
It's, well, we're already doing it for city council. It's called One Meeting. And yeah, council is on it now. And so I think there's 30 some boards and commissions in the city, and so we kind of have to do them over a period of time. I think RAB might make that change at the end of this year, but also talk to the representative about the consistency of meeting materials and the way we produce things, and particularly minutes. And so we'll be shifting to action minutes, which are similar to the council format. So some of the items that are currently transcribed word for word, meetings that you will see, it'll be more of a summary version going forward. I think the word for word option will still be there for members of the public because we have the recordings that are online. So just wanted to, and we'll make that change on the minutes, probably starting with this meeting.
Is it AI assisted?
The transcription that we do now might be, but
I know there's capabilities, we do, like, I do have access to transcription, but that's not what,
My question
these will
was,
still be produced.
will
by-
the minutes?
the artificial
I
assistant.
think they're so, you'll see that they're so simple that
Yeah,
whether we
okay,
used AI or just did it ourselves, it's not.
doesn't mean.
It'd be like the board voted on, there was an action item, the board voted this way, kind of a thing. And then the other two items were a water supply update and Kim split on us, so I guess we won't be
You're on.
to do that. But also a quick water quality update. Our annual water quality report just came out and all good news, all positive, and a huge shout out to Megan and the water quality team for managing a complex set of regulations and regulatory requirements. And
Just happy to get it, you
so Megan, we're behind schedule, so you have 45 seconds.
Thanks, yeah,
A
Megan
quick
Wilson,
version.
okay, Megan Wilson, Outfall, the Water Quality Senior Manager. I don't have much to add on the water quality report. A lot of the language in the report is required by regulations, so it's a little bit wonky. And I feel like it buries the lead, which is that we've had no violations, we've met and exceeded all state water quality standards. It's really the culmination of efforts from water treatment, the water resources team, and the water quality team. Happy to answer any questions.
Is that typical? We don't have one of those.
Say yes, we've had a few in the past few years related to our backflow prevention program. And part of that was continuous ramping up of state requirements and trying to catch up. But we are in smooth sailing, as smooth as you can be with backflow regulations. Nothing there. In terms of the water quality, we haven't had a violation. As opposed to more of a technique or treatment violation.
I'll say it's typical, but it's not. You see behind the scenes all that goes into getting a clean report like this. It is not easy. It's not, and we have a good team.
The other thing I just wanted to mention quickly, I've spoken to you and others on my team have spoken to you about our Eurasian Water Milfoil program. Talked about that a couple months ago with the diver assisted suction harvesting. And the boat that we procured in partnership with Northern Water and Parks. So that boat is out on the water, have divers, Parks is managing the diver staff. So I just wanted to mention that you may see it out there if you're on the boat on the reservoir. Joel had a really good question when we met a couple weeks ago, or maybe that's just last week. It doesn't matter. About how we're going to monitor that. So this is the first year, I think it will be kind of a baseline year of how is this working, how is it controlling the Eurasian water milfoil out on the reservoir. So you may see it. We're excited to have it. That's all.
Awesome.
Thank you.
45, that was perfect. So I can touch on the water supply situation, and I think Kim might have had a slide or two, but that's fine, I can do it without. I think there's positive news in that those precipitation events that we've had in the last month have helped quite a bit. And I think when the team came and briefed the board in April, we were projecting that the Silver Lake Reservoir and Barker Reservoir would not fill. And this year likely would not fill. And just last week, Silver Lake Reservoir filled and spilled, which was good. And there's some indication that Barker will either fill or get close. And so that's really good. I'm just
You want a visual?
sure, you could do that, but I will also say, just like kind of bragging on Megan's team, I happen to sit next to the water resources group Sorry for them, but I hear all the coordination that they do and the level of expertise and everything that they have shown in this situation and the way they're optimizing all of our opportunities to just maximize what we can store and working with other entities and the water commissioner. I think the improving situation is somewhat due to the precipitation, but it's also due to that. So we're fortunate to have them.
So at this point, the bottom line is there's no intention or need to go from where the drought watch to level 1 restriction.
But maintain the drought watch.
And is the drought watch produced, I mean, you said at one point, Joe, that older water users are pretty good. When you put up the watch, it actually makes a difference in terms of how much water people are using. Do you guys see that in the?
We track that really closely. Kim can maybe add to this, but I don't know that we can necessarily say definitively.
Oh, that it's the drought, but
that what we're seeing is the result of the communication and the messaging we've done with the community, but I've seen the trends of demand and how it compares to average. And well, there it is. I don't have to.
Yeah, so April 1 is when we implemented the drought watch. So prior to that, in March, you can see how our demands were increasing, and that was really worrisome for us. So that was a primary driver for doing that drought watch. And then in April, again, it continued to be warm and dry. And so use was high, but we were also requesting people not turn on their sprinklers until May. I think this depression here that happened late May was again due to the change in weather. So as Joe said, it's difficult to say, exactly what demand changes are attributed to. Weather's a big part of it, but seeing what trajectory we were on early on in March prior to April, I think we've certainly changed that.
And my belief is it was so dry prior to April that like midsummer demands go up to 25 mgb on average. I was worried if we didn't do anything or say anything, we would go immediately to that level. And we really didn't. And so that is my own view is I think the messaging and communication has made a difference.
But it looks like the red line is recent, so it looks like we're a little bit above historic use.
Look at that, no, it dove, Joel.
No, but the red.
It's trended a little bit above,
Yeah,
but
just recently. Yeah, just like most recent.
That's the 5-year average.
I still think it'd be way above.
It'd be a lot higher before.
So for me, the way this graph looks, my own sort of experience and interpretation, I see it as a positive.
Any idea how widespread the people are following 2-day-a-week watering requests?
I think it varies, and I think some community members are now starting to use the Inquire Boulder system to also report things that they see that doesn't look right. I actually need to have a conversation with my own HOA about what we're doing. Nobody look up my address.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Oh. That's pretty good for the web.
So that's a quick snapshot. I think positive.
Yes.
Still guarded, but
Yeah.
Not a bad trend, all things considered. That is what we had for matters. Would you like me to touch quickly on future schedule?
That'd be great. Thank you.
So now we go into our new months, but 3-meeting series on the capital improvement program. The first month, July, will be a review of where we left off last year, kind of hitting some of the basics with you. August, we will dedicate the whole month to the CIP and a rate discussion. Lots to chew on there. And then in September, we will come back to you and have a public hearing and a vote on the CIP and rates. The only additional thing on that 3 3-month series is in July. We'll also have an information item and an update on the rate study. And before it's all said and done, we might have another item on the September agenda as well, and possibly another cut on the rate study. But still in progress. So that is what I have for the upcoming schedule.
When do we make the recommendation to council on rates?
September.
September. That, so we have the hearing and we decide
Yep.
and there's no deliberation. It's just like.
Well, that's why we dedicate the whole month, the prior month. With the hope that we have a real in-depth conversation with the board, get your feedback, get your concerns, and then hopefully have come back. The month of the public hearing, having addressed those so that we're. Positioned for it to be easy for you. So I think you just need a motion to close out. I think that was all we had on the formal agenda. We need a motion to close out the meeting and then we'll switch to the tour.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.